Scotchy scotch, scotch. I love scotch. Down into my belly. We're talking about scotch Christmas gifts. So you know somebody who likes scotch. Well, me too. It's me, among a few other people. Whereas if you look on my shelf behind me, the vast majority, probably 96% of my whiskey is American whiskey. I actually started with scotch. That was my introduction into the whiskey world, and I love scotch. It's fantastic. I don't collect it, because basically any scotch that you like is going to be on the shelf. Like, I don't collect rare scotch because I don't have $4,000 laying around to buy the Macallan M Lily Crystal decanter. Like, it's just not going to happen. I'm not flush with the cash. Don't have it. So I'm not worried about like, oh, I got to buy this one and that one because they're going to run out of it. No. I know that the ones that I've had that I like, that I can even get close to afford, they're going to continue to have. So don't just assume that because I don't have any scotch means I don't know anything about scotch. I mean, I drink and I know things, right? Put it on my tombstone. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Hey, thanks. Subscribe, hit the bell notification down below, and also check out my other videos, mainly about American whiskey. I just dropped 2 earlier this week talking about bourbon Christmas gifts and rye Christmas gifts. So if you're looking for recommendations, whether things to give or to try, check those out. As the video goes along, if you like what I'm dropping, just give the video a like. If you think there's something I should have included on my list of scotch Christmas gifts, tell me in the comments. But now let's get into it. Let's talk about scotch whiskeys that you should give for Christmas presents. First up is probably the best value in scotch that I've found. It's full of flavor, not very old, mind you, but very low price, very high flavor, and decent proof. A lot of scotches tend to come very low, 40 to 43% alcohol by volume. This one gets up into the 46, so it packs a little bit more of a punch, and that's Deanston Virgin Oak. It looks like this. Now, I bought Deanston Virgin Oak for as little as $20 a bottle. Standard price is going to run you more, around $30. Standard age on this, not, like I said, not very old. But because of its aging in the Virgin Oak, you get a decent amount of character, flavor, sweetness from its aging process. And the folks at Deanston do really good job. The Deanston 12, fantastic. That's going to be like 50 to 60 bucks. But that Deanston Virgin Oak is like, oh, I don't have a lot of money, but I know they like scotch. Hey, get the Deanston. Second scotch, and this is going to be one that works really, really well for both the American whiskey lover and the Scotch whiskey lover. And that would be Glenfiddich 14 Bourbon Barrel Reserve. Looks like this. Now that looks good. When they released this whiskey, they had done a pretty cool campaign, like commercial campaign in the United States about like people chopping wood and making boats and stuff. It was very American. But I was thrilled about it because the bottle looked cool. Like the blue on the Glenfiddich bottle just was like, oh yeah, that looks cool. And I liked Glenfiddich 15, even 12. Glenfiddich 12 I thought was pretty good. And Glenfiddich 12 you can often find for like 35. It's pretty good for a 12-year-old scotch. Glenfiddich 14, you can get this thing at Total Wine for like $44. So a 14-year-old scotch, $44. We're in budget mode here. Like, that's a great deal. You can't afford not to buy that. And then the bourbon barrel influence on the Glenfiddich, which a lot of scotch is aged in bourbon barrels, but they get used over and over again. This one emphasizes the use of the bourbon barrel, and they seem to be pretty fresh. The flavors are pretty killer. You get a lot of sweetness out of this one. So big flavors, a lot of sweetness, high value, killer bottle. Gotta buy it. The next one is probably my favorite budget scotch. And we just got it done talking about Glenfiddich 14 and Deanston Virgin Oak. I mean, we're in good company right now. And that would be Oben Little Bay. Now, Oben Little Bay just got released, like, I think it was 5 years ago or something. So it's a relatively new product in the Oben line of whiskeys. I've had Oben 14, amazing. I have Oben 18 right now, unbelievable. But Oben Little Bay is like right there with them. And this whiskey I've had for as little as 30. Generally, I see it for about 40 now. When it was released, it was in the $60 range, but then they cut it way down, which is like, this is freaking awesome because it's so good. It's slightly peated, suggestion of peat. Like it's not big salty, it's barely smoky, like just a tiny suggestion. And then it's balanced out with a lot of leather, orange peel, vanilla, and sherry influence. So that Oben, and you get more sherry out of the Little Bay than you do like Oben 14 or Oben 18. It's so good. Whiskey number 4, slightly more risky and slightly more expensive, but delicious. So if you know somebody who likes scotch and they like peated scotch, I recommend Talisker 10. So Talisker 10, that's not super aged for a scotch, but man, it just feels well balanced. Like I'm not a huge peat guy, but Talisker 10 brings some, like it's smoke and salinity with just the right amount of sweetness that pairs really well with food. Whereas those first 3 scotches that I mentioned, really solid budget options, really palatable, really good after dinner, like dessert, sweeter. Talisker is going to be fantastic with seafood. I had a chowder, a mussel chowder once with Talisker 10, and it was a match made in heaven. Like if you're going to have a peated whiskey, or if you're going to try a peated whiskey for the first time, you're not really big into it, I recommend starting with Talisker 10. It's going to run you 50 to 60 bucks unless you can find a good deal on it. I think there's a liquor store close to me actually that has it on sale right now for like 40, and if that's the case, you should probably buy it because that's a killer value and you won't be sorry. And I don't think anybody who likes peated scotch would ever be sorry to get a bottle of Talisker 10. Okay, if you want to buy somebody a sweet, very desserty scotch that looks really classy, well, then you're going to get into giving our whiskey number 5 here, and that is Dalmore 12. It looks like this. Look at that deer head on that thing. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, that bottle is a really hot bottle. That's hot. It's really hot. And the whiskey inside is very good. It is very sweet. Like Dalmore and sherry, like they're together. Dalmore and sweet, sugary, desserty, like wine finished or sherry finished scotches. That's kind of what they do, but they do it really well. Their head distiller or blender or taster, whatever they call him in Scotland, Richard Patterson. He's kind of a character, which, I mean, you would hope so. You would hope anybody involved in Scotch whiskey has quite a bit of personality. He does. But back to the whiskey, Dalmore 12, really solid, super sweet, desserty, a little bit more expensive. We're talking 50 to 60 now. Still, you know, you can manage it, but you're gonna have to like this person a little bit more to go from the Deanston Virgin Oak to the Dalmore 12. But if somebody likes a sweeter scotch, like the Macallan, Dalmore 12 is a fantastic replacement for Macallan. All right, 2 more left. Now we're talking about if you're gonna stretch a little bit. Okay, like I'm gonna buy a nice gift. I'm gonna buy a gift for my husband. I'm gonna buy a gift for my boss who I'm trying to impress. I'm gonna buy a gift for my father-in-law because he doesn't like me because I like the Packers instead of the Bears. Then get Glenfarclas 17. Glenfarclas 17, higher aged, so when you start getting into like 18-year-old Scotch whiskeys, you're generally going to drop a pretty penny, sometimes multiple hundreds of dollars, but Glenfarclas 17 is a fairly reasonable price, like in the $100 range. If you shop at the right places, you can find Glenfarclas 17 for $100. The Glenfarclas family of scotches tends to be relatively cheaper. Their bottles aren't super hot, but the whiskey is really good. It's right down the middle of the road, like it's not peaty. It's not super dry. Like it kind of tastes similar to a Glenlivet, but the Glenfarclas 17 is going to run you a lot less money than a Glenlivet 18. So when it comes to giving gifts, save a little bit of money, but still deliver a pretty fantastic higher age scotch with the Glenfarclas 17. Finally, the scotch to give, if you know, I just know they like scotch, but you have no idea what kind of scotch they like. Get them the Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean cask, or Caribbean cask. It's Pirates of the Caribbean, the one that comes from south of where we are. So 14 years old is pretty good age on a whiskey. And then the rum finish, so that Caribbean or Caribbean, whatever, the sea cask, it was rum. That was what was in there. So when the scotch goes into the rum barrel, it gets really sweet. But it's got a decent amount of age on it, like 12 years in standard oak, American oak, which would be bourbon generally. Bourbon oak cask, then it goes into the Caribbean cask. And you just end up with a well-aged, really sweet, middle, like 60 average price for this one, pre-tariffs. $60 price point for a killer scotch. And, well, somebody who's only into peated, like the Lagavulin, the Laphroaig, the Ardbeg, they may not super jam on the Caribbean cask, but you know what? They'll drink it after dinner with ice cream and they'll be fine. They'll get over it. And it's still a fairly reasonable price for a really great scotch. That's what I'd give scotch lovers for Christmas. You know what? I'll throw one more on there. For the peat head. You need a reasonably priced, really strong peated whiskey. Well, there's two. Lagavulin 8. Not really widely available, but you can find it. Lagavulin 8, $65 to $70. Relatively new release, a younger Lagavulin, packs a wallop, but is super peated, pretty dang good. The other one you can always go with is Laphroaig 10. That's a peat bomb. It's not refined really at all. Not my favorite. I'd go Lagavulin 8 before I'd go Laphroaig 10, but I know a lot of people, peat heads, who love Laphroaig 10. And that one will run you $45 to $50, good value. All right. Those are my Scotch whiskey gift recommendations. Again, if you disagree, that's fine. Let me know below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate the support. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification below so you can catch my other videos. I hope you have a great holiday season, and I hope you get some pretty rad whiskey. Thanks again. Remember to keep it neat.